Well, thank you very much, everyone. It's very pleasing to see so many wonderful geoscientists here today. Might I start by saying that it's an absolute pleasure to work on the Mount Cannindah project. It's one of those projects where the more you get into it, the more you find, and it's the more the project delivers. It's a complex project, and with that complexity brings the opportunity. So I hope I do the project justice tonight and what I'm going to present to you. And I'm really looking forward to some really tough questions at the end. So bring it on. Thank you very much. As per normal, I have to throw a disclaimer up. There's the normal disclaimer there. There is the competent person statement. And I'll also be referencing and talking in copper equivalents a number of times. So for those people into that, there's the reference there. It wouldn't be right to not acknowledge several people in this process here today. Obviously, the executives and board members of Cannindah Resources, in particular, Mr. Tom Pickett, all the investors of this company. We strive to do the best by you, obviously. All the geologists as well who have worked on Mount Cannindah, and there's a wonderful old gentleman here who has done such a lot of previous work here previously on this project. So I acknowledge all those people, because a lot of the information that I'd suck out here today is from these people. It's fantastic. Special reference also to the TerraSearch team, particularly Simon Beams, for the dedication to revisit the project in 2020, leading to the current revitalisation and resource delivery. Past authors of the Cannindah report. So these are all the consultants and all these people who have been there, seen it, had a look at it and interpreted it and documented it. So I acknowledge all those people. Special mention to the AIG, and in particular the committee. Where would we be without the AIG? So thank you to everyone who's involved in the AIG, the past and present people. Thank you indeed. And the GSAQ. And of course, our wonderful sponsors, ALS. Where would we be without our nibbles downstairs? So again, I'll just start with a corporate snapshot. So the important things perhaps to note here is that we're a market cap of $17 million, $17.5 million today. Put that in the back of your minds about what I'm going to show you today and think about the opportunity. The board and management has been revitalised, and the wonderful chart over there says which we're on a rocket ship perhaps into the future. You read the disclaimer with that, obviously. So I like to think of the Cannindah project as it's all upside. So the Cannindah project, as we sit here today, has 159,000 tonne of copper equivalent. It's open-ended to the north, to the south, and at depth. Now, this is contained within a breccia, and that resource footprint of that breccia represents, by calculation, about 2%, but I'll put about 5% of the total mineral system footprint. So I look at things as, here's my mineral system footprint. What are the styles and what have I got internal to your mineral system? And this is a breccia. So the remaining mineral system footprint has a diversity of mineralisation styles that includes hydrothermal and structural breccias, gold, silver, copper, high sulfidation styles. Really importantly, 2D, 3D porphyry copper moly gold and silver stockworks. Tremendous development of skarns. That's going to be one of the themes here today. We have base metal intermediate sulfidation veins and breccias. And we have epithermal style veins. They're not so much veins, but big alteration ribs or shoulders and things like that that transect the region. In my mind and thinking, it's a diverse system. So system diversity equals system fertility. Coupled with that, we have this enormous database of rocks, soils, IP, magnetics, some 432 diamond drill holes, and all the commentary from all these other wonderful geologists that identify targets and further opportunities. Critical to this process is that the recent exploration only commenced in 2020, and to date, the entire project, throughout the entire project, there is only one single 1,000 metre deep hole. Think about that, 1,000 metre deep hole in quite an interesting and dynamic porphyry environment. It's untested. The concepts that resulted in the delivery of the Cannindah breccia resource have not been applied to the remainder of the Cannindah ore system, and that's the remaining 95%. I hope today you'll see, as I see, that the targets identified can be transformative. And the really critical thing for Cannindah resources is the fact that the location and infrastructure advantages are phenomenal in terms of power costs, water costs, access to port, and that results in favourable project economics and investment hurdles. So where are we? We're in the Yarra province, obviously. The sub-province, the Yarra province, the Rockhampton sub-province. We are located on the faulted contact between the Carboniferous limey sediments, over here, and the Triassic mafites, which is the Muncon volcanics. So they're a fractionated suite of basalts all the way through to dacite/rhyolites. It's intruded by an elongate composite Triassic diorite suite to monzonite suite. So again, wonderful fractionation. The Calpower fault, which is this thing right down here through the middle of the project, has been active pre, syn and post-mineral. And importantly, where the project location is with reference to the Calpower fault, it's located on the major flexure of the fault, a zone of bifurcation, and an apparent horsetail to the north. What a wonderful structural position. Mineralisation is classically zoned outward from the Calpower fault. So we'll just zoom into the local geology. Quick description. Muncon volcanics, the mafites over here. Carboniferous sediments over here. This is the limey sediments, the Carboniferous limey sediments over here. You'll note in the legend over here that they talk about skarns, garnet and magnetite skarns. Interesting. Look at the colours, look at the size of the prize that sits down here. It's quite enormous. And of course, intruding all this is the elongate composite MIC, the Monument Intrusive Complex. Over the top are these epithermal ribs. They're alteration zones, they're not veins, and they transect all the way across through the whole system and control the distribution of some of the copper-gold mineralisation. So I'm not the first person to stand up here and preach to the converted about the Mount Cannindah system being a porphyry system. Fletcher back in 1975 had outlined it really uniquely and fantastically. So all the previous writers had recognised this and had documented. What is important here, however, is the existing Cannindah breccia gold copper resource is located on the periphery to the central component of the system. So the central component of the system here, the breccia resource out on the edges there. And if you think about why things are focused on that, the peripheral of the system, of these systems, is typically the more sulfide rich. You develop wonderful gossans, breccias and all these sorts of things. And people don't tend to focus on the inner parts. But modern exploration has documented and has been successful in going into systems where these have been identified and finding vastly increased quantities of material in the central zones. Look at Bingham Canyon, look at some of the Chilean examples, look at Cadia with the skarns, big Cadia, little Cadia, and what they found there. Fantastic analogy. Let's talk about the Cannindah breccia. 14.5 at 1.09% copper equivalent. It's a good start. It's a structurally controlled hydrothermal breccia characterised by the elongate nature. And I love historic maps. This is the old Carpentaria historic map. I think it's in 1964. And they outline the Cannindah breccia beautifully. And it tells you a story. It's elongate in nature, shingle shatter decompression textures. And Pete mentioned previously about the AIG channel. I'll just reference everyone to some fantastic presentations by Doug Kerwin on breccias and things like that. If you're looking for information like that, go and listen to what Doug has to say. And if anyone wants any further information, just get in contact and I can point you in the right direction for sure. So where is the Cannindah breccia located? It's located on a major north-northeast trending fault. It's peripheral to the Monument Intrusive Complex, but it's on the intersection of the Monument Intrusive Complex long axis. So the Monument Intrusive Complex is not a cylindrical complex. It's an elongate complex. It's fractionated. It's come in under strain. The breccia sits on a northeast trending fault on the intersection with the northwest trending Monument Intrusive Complex long axis. Ideal place. The really critical takeaway for everyone here today for this slide is it dips to the west. The breccia dips to the west. It doesn't dip back to the Monument Intrusive Complex. So the fluids that form the Cannindah breccia are not from the Monument Intrusive Complex. They're from something further to the west and deeper down. What we also see, however, is we see really strong host rock controls. We see a primary control, and that control is the lithological contact between a diorite and the hornfels sediment. So these really hard, brittle hornfels on the contact of a diorite with a big fault going through. Wonderful place for a breccia. The secondary controls include, internal to that, some of the hornfels are preferred mineralizers. So they break or they shatter differently to other components, and I'll show you that effect shortly. The dimensions of the breccia is 600 metres in strike, in excess of 100 metres in width. It's drilled to 1,000 metres. We're still in mineralisation, and it's open in all directions. There are, importantly, from an economic side of the equation, it's wonderful to do geology, but at the end of the day, we've all got to make money. There are internal higher grade zones of mineralisation, and they are related to both changes in dip and strike of the fault, the type of the breccia, and the host rock. And there's some of the wonderful drill intersections that Cannindah has achieved previously: 493 at 1.17% equivalent, 278 at 1.26. So there's pretty interesting intersections on the world scale. Again, as part of our hydrothermal system understanding, the copper-gold silver mineralisation has an overprint of high-grade gold, bismuth, zinc, and lead. There is an early-stage pyritic stockwork with quartz moly veins observed. So straight away, you can see the porphyry affinities are clearly demonstrated. Classically, the mineralisation is coarse-grained, the metallurgy is excellent, and there's further upside with hydrofloat and things like that for sure. So what about the geometry and the structural controls? On the left-hand side, that's not good. On the left-hand side, this is a plan view at the 200 RL, I think it is. You can see the fault running through there, and you can see the flexure and where it flexes on both ends, and here is the high-grade zone sitting in here. So it's both a grade and a width thing. So it's a beautiful open space geometry. But also in section, you see the thing steepening as well, and then flattening. And the key zone here is between the 300 and the 100 RL. And you can see that all the way through in plan view at that 200 RL. These holes to the south are collared too far in the hanging wall and have not intersected the chute. So we're just in the process of attempting to drill holes in these extensions down here. So it's open to the north and open to the south. So fantastic opportunity. In a 3D perspective, this is what it looks like. So I spoke about the 100 to the 300 RL. Here is the chute in through here. Again, I flagged these holes are not drilled in the right positions. Down here, they're in the hanging wall. It's open-ended to the northeast, where again it flexes and bifurcates, and it's open to the south. We identify a 700-metre strike extension on this fertile structure. It's exciting times moving forward. But what do the rocks look like? So the Cannindah breccia, on surface, it's easily recognisable, and this is what it is. So here's the elongate shingle shatter nature of the breccia. Everyone has described this thing as a shingle or shatter breccia. There's a clear structural control. The breccia is localised on a major rock rheology contrast. Really importantly, this shingle breccia, which is demonstrated in the first two slides on the left, as increases in depth, moves towards a hydrothermal moves towards a breccia with a greater hydrothermal input, for sure. There is early biotite hornfells, is the brittle host and controls the metal distribution. If you look in the middle slide here, the upper part's quite well mineralised with the shingles and the chalcopyrite in the middle. This horizon in through here, it just doesn't like the brecciation or the process of formation. And then we go back into our shingle breccia. And that's really important to understand that niche sample in terms of the drilling that's been completed here at Cannindah. Moly levels increase to the south, as I've already mentioned. The other key thing here is the breccia channel, 100 metres wide, calcic, bit of potassium coming in, is enveloped by an enormous zone of albite. Incredible. So the hornfells is brittle, the albite formation is brittle, big northeast trending structure, beautiful environment. And the early porphyry style mineralisation, we see evidence for that as fragments in the breccia, which I'm going to show you now. This is from Alan Wilson, the first two slides on the left-hand side here, and they just demonstrate the dynamic nature of this breccia. This is a chaotic breccia, but the important thing for people to take home here is this buff-coloured material in the middle is rock flour. So this thing is evolving at depth, churning away and producing rock flour and punching that rock flour up through the breccia column. Really important. In some parts of the Cannindah breccia, you also see felsic intrusive material as well. So if there's beautiful things you want to see, the Cannindah breccia is displaying as well. Now, the rock on the right is my favourite rock. So the interesting thing here is that we have an early biotite hornfells sediment, which has been albite altered, but the albite is very selective. So it doesn't like this unit here, but it loves this unit in through here. We also see early albertized diorite as fragments up over here with late stage orthoclase veins running through them. And here we go, porphyry A veins sitting up in this fragment up in here. We then see that there's another early phase of brecciation in this fragment in here. So multiple phases, multiple alteration size, really diverse, fertile thing. The other thing is we have a beautiful dacite feldspar ferric porphyry coming through, which is this beast over here. And you can see the orthoclase fracture there, which has been brecciated, then the fragment has been brecciated thereafter, calcic bit of potassic input, and that is now reverted to illite. So orthoclase illite, it's just a temperature differential there. So if I had to summarise the Cannindah breccia is complex, has a polyphasal history with a metal source, most likely a porphyry copper, gold, silver moly, centre at depth way to the southeast. Now, the interpretation of that thing is really important, that we know it's driven off a porphyry, but it's way down there. It's not for Cannindah, it's far too deep. But perhaps there's something else I'll allude to coming up. If you look at the geology, there's been some fantastic work completed here on the geology. TerraSearch have actually documented all the breccia phases quite nicely. On the left is the copper grade, so 300 and something metres at 1.03% here. The sulphur grades here, the system keeps going. But the difference here with the breccia is that you go into these different rock units down here, and those rock units very well could be not the favourable components to the breccia, or we're not on the favourable structural point or the flexure on the fault. We don't know that yet. How do we know about the width of this beast in that channel down through there? Because there's lots of holes that come back the other way. So we control the dimensions by that. And if we didn't drill these holes, we wouldn't know about the rock type effect. Really critical. Multiple direction holes in these systems are key, so you don't bias your data. It's very clear that the HBX, or the hydrothermal breccia, has more metal. The percentage of clasts and type of clasts are really important in understanding that metal distribution. Our future activity will focus on not only just the structure, the breccia types, or the host rock controls, but the system zonation as well. The thing is zoned, and I'll get to that in a minute as well. Our work program moving forward will be drill testing with some great geological input. So this is a project that has the opportunity for geologists who want to learn on what is a fantastic and dynamic system. Let's just have a go at throwing all this together, shall we? So up the top, the old guys started with the oxidised breccia, the old shingle breccia up in through here. They drilled down into it and they found, again, beautiful chalcopyrite infill, lovely shingle or shattered textures. As they got down at depth, they realised that the hydrothermal component was coming in a bit more. And then they started to find fragments of what is interpreted by people like Alan Wilson and Dick Silite as porphyry D-style veins, or the upper level of D-style veins. So these are pyrite, sericite dominated veins. And if you get down to it even deeper, but this is as fragments in the diorite, there are beautiful porphyry A veins. And if you look at the geochem, even these A veins carry the essentials, the copper, the moly, the gold, and the silver. It's all there. Fertile system. Here's the host rock around the outside. That's what the biotite hornfells look like, with a bit of calcic alteration up the middle there in terms of epidote. Here's the albite halo, the most brittle rock. So big brittle rock, another brittle rock, big breccia up the middle of the structure. On the other side, what we also see is the intermediate sulfidation styles of veins, the tennantite, the tetrahedrite, the high pyrite content, and they sit sort of peripheral but up in this part of the world. We see beautiful base metal veins characterised by this guy here, which is full of sphalerite, bit of galena, and those things, and they have numbers up to 96 grams. We get a high moly component in several places, and this is as the most magnificent milled hydrothermal breccias, but typically just as moly veins increasing to the south. Again, system zonation, early days. I'll revert to you in a year on that side of the equation. And at depth, what we actually see, we see K-spar quartz veins, which everyone would say is veins, but many people in the industry say they're aplites. They're pegmatitic aplites. So that's the intrusive link at depth. So we actually start to see that as both fragments and fractures as well. So that's the Cannindah breccia. But what else have we got in this dynamic system? So again, I just throw in old maps. Again, a huge fan of understanding what other people have done, so I don't replicate or duplicate what their work program is. The soil sampling results at Cannindah define, let me say this again, the soil sampling results at the Cannindah breccia outline a zone 1,500 metres by 500 metres at plus 1,000 ppm copper. Plus 1,000 ppm copper. In the Monument Lifesaver Dano area, wrapping around this area here. Now that's the area that was mapped by the geologists past as skarn, garnet, magnetite, all these sorts of things. The geochemistry there is supported by the great geology, including the outcropping skarns. You see porphyry A veins there, porphyry B, porphyry C. You have lots and lots of halo drill holes, again completed in the 60s and early 70s to 30 and 60 metres depth, that intersect broad intervals of copper moly and where it's been assayed gold as well. The mineralisation is associated with magnetite, and so the magnetics also confirm, and the magnetics clearly expands the footprint of what we've got down there as well. And the recent mapping we've just completed, the blokes up there, have verified and validated the data. So the existing Cannindah breccia is defined up here by a small footprint 1,000+ ppm copper anomaly. The southern target is of a size and scale and tenor that is a clear tier 1 target. So very exciting times for Cannindah resources moving forward. That's also supported by the moly geochemistry, which is here, and just note the level, 70 ppm. 70 ppm in soil, which is absolutely screaming. 0.1 gold, phenomenal. These are big high order numbers, like many of the big discoveries around the place. And this sat in the database for years and years and years. It's really exciting. And I just remind everyone, because we're here today because people pay us and they have to get an investment return. Multi-commodity projects can typically offer more project and financial flexibility. Look at North Parkes at the moment, producing gold equivalent at negative $2,000. Look at the Ridgeway, who Rob Torb over here won't only know too well about, 7 million ounces at negative all-in sustaining costs. Cash cows. So Ernest Henry is another one. So multi-commodity projects are the best ones to be in. So what do the Southern Target skarns look like? So they're pyritic. And so straight away being pyritic, many people would go, well, there's no copper there. But if you put it into perspective with the alteration and all that, what you find is the pyrite, you're only representing the upper level of these porphyry systems anyway. And that's what it looks like. So we have epidote, garnet, magnetite, pyrite, calcite, skarn here, beautiful. 0.46, bit of gold, and extremely high moly. For people interested about the moly numbers, Cadia at 100 ppm moly makes an incredible amount of money for that group right now, staggering amount of investment return. And of course, other photos of the skarns from the old drill core, beautiful magnetite, garnet, pyrite skarn, but it's got 0.2 copper, 160 moly, and 0.16 gold. These skarns haven't really been sampled for gold, yet we've got huge gold anomalies. What's it look like on surface? Well, you see the B veins. Classic B vein running through there, but you have to get on your hands and knees and get your hand lens out and have a look. You also see classic C veins. So the chalcopyrite veins that characterise many of these systems here, and they're sheeted in nature. There's a sheeted chalcopyrite vein overprint running through the thing. So again, ticking the box in terms of all the favourable things that you look for. Again, just like at the Cannindah breccia, we have the high-grade quartz high-grade gold event with the base metal veins as well. And there they are. These things aren't unique to the Cannindah breccia. We have them in the Southern Target and the porphyry systems around the edge as well. What else do we see? This is a bit of geological rock photos spam, I suppose. We also see the quartz pyrite moly sericite veins characterised by this really phenomenal beast up through here. So 170 ppm copper, but 1,000 ppm moly. Unbelievable. At Lifesaver, again, when you hit the monument intrusive complex, remember, we're not chasing the monument intrusive complex. The monument intrusive complex is only a host. We get 700 copper, 875 moly, and we get a beautiful hematite overprint there as well, telling us we're in the upper or outer parts of the system. Again, Lifesaver here. Yeah, this is in the biotite hornfells. Hematite fracture stockwork with overprint of quartz pyrite sericite stockwork. Lovely rocks. And again, at Lifesaver, in parts there as well, you see beautiful orthoclase fractures with beautiful selvages. Fantastic. Again, if you go back to historic work, what you actually see is people far smarter than me have put all this stuff together. So that's actually, previously there was a historic resource here. It was done by sectional end area polygonal interpretation. They identified at least 4 favourable skarn horizons, and they traced them over 1,000 by 500 metres. The sulphide species is dominated by pyrite. We know that because we're in the pyritic halo. There's primary hematite as well as magnetite. We know that because we're in the pyrite halo again, and we're on the outer limits. Every hole here says to us that the chalcopyrite increases with depth down the stratigraphic dip. So the deeper you go, the greater the increase in copper, which is one of the key things for major companies we look for. That it's that beautiful increase in grade down the hole. We have that here. But just like the Cannindah breccia, the skarns dip away from the monument intrusive complex. So the monument intrusive complex cannot be the source for the mineralisation for these skarns. It's somewhere down over here. And so if you put it all together with your halo holes, and there's some of the results for the halo holes in through here, put it into sections in Geoscience Analyst, this is what you see. Just watch the scale over here. So we can trace these thick skarn zones over 400 to 500 metres down dip. routinely, all the time, and over 1,000 metres. All the vectors, so our surface rock chip sampling has flagged to us that they're increasing tin, tungsten, and all those metals that one would associate, that Scott Halley, for example, would be really focused on, vectoring over the central core key areas of the intrusive centre, or the stock. The pencil is what we're chasing. So this is just a schematic. Here's our surface data, and this is the end game for us, perhaps down in through here. What a wonderful target. We know that the southern area is dominated by magnetite skarn, so I've clearly demonstrated that. The magnetics clearly define that. Coincidentally, down through here, we have beautiful donuts as well. We don't know what they are yet. They've never been tested, but if you go to North Parkes, Cadia Ridgeway, and all these other systems, the classic donut shape is there as well. However, what the magnetics tell us is we have another target as well. We've already demonstrated that Barry Moon crosses the Kalpow Fault, and the Muncon volcanics are just a cover sequence or part of the whole mineral system footprint. The magnetics further outline another 1,800 metres of strike and skarn development down the Kalpow Fault. The historic holes to the north that have been completed there give us the same results and same geochemistry that's up in through here, but there's not many holes. It's all undercover. The key here is we've done a lot of IP over this area, and MIMDAS and things like that. Both the southern target and the eastern target are also supported by IP chargeability and, really importantly, conductivity anomalies. And that's what it looks like in 3D isometric view. Cannindah breccia up over here, associated with a beautiful IP anomaly. The southern target, the huge footprint down there, associated with the magnetite skarns down in there, that's 75 millivolt. Internal to that, there are coherent zones of 110 millivolts per volt as well. And there's the huge eastern IP anomaly. Now, there's no drill holes down that thing at all. So for a small junior, I'll just go back to the corporate scenario with 17.5 million. What a fan market cap. What a great opportunity moving forward. I mentioned to you also about the Barry Moon. Barry Moon's a fault. It's been previously written up and described as an epithermal vein. It's clearly not a vein. It's an alteration rib, perhaps. Some people call these things shoulders, perhaps, but I prefer the word rib for this guy. It's a 3-kilometre strike fault zone with intense quartz sericite pyrite alteration. This thing's devoid of geochemistry. This is dead as. But when you get down through the Muncon volcanics on the eastern end, you come across skarn mineralisation again, and your copper and gold numbers go up through the roof. So 3 kilometres back to the Kalpow Fault, and there's been no work done in through here. Interesting. And we have other similar examples of this style of beast on the mining leases as well. So for all the boffins in here who love geochemistry and all the high-end stuff as well, all the major companies throughout the place go and look for fertility indicators and age dates so that they can get high degrees and high levels of confidence in what they do to support their exploration investment. Again, I dive in and I mine the data. This is what was in the data. So a large company had been through here. They'd sampled both this hole and this hole, which was completed in 2021, and these are the results. The age date here is exactly the same age as Mount Rawdon. So when Mount Rawdon went off down to the south, Cannindah and perhaps all these other systems were going off as well. The really important thing here is the trend it sits on is in the, can't see what it reads, but I think it's, well, it goes up into the shoshonitic and almost the alkalic end of the spectrum. And we know that those systems have a high prospectivity or a high component of probability to develop wonderful copper, gold, moly ore bodies. The other thing is that, again, from Halley and Bob Laux and all these guys who have dedicated their lives to understanding these sorts of things, is that the vanadium-scandium over scandium ratios are all positive for what we call hornblende fractionation. which is the best indicator for every major porphyry deposit all around the world of being fertile. So what we sit here today, this is the first documentation for anyone out there that the Cannindah rocks, we can say, are fertile for copper and gold. Let me just sum up. Corporate, okay, so Cannindah Resources owns 100% of the mining leases in EPM. We have an open-ended mineral resource estimate at Mount Cannindah Breccia of 14.5 million tonnes at 1.09% or 159,000 tonne of copper. We have drill-ready, large-scale, high-order, Tier 1 footprint copper, gold, moly, porphyry targets right here. The geology displays complex style and diversity of systems, which is absolutely fantastic. You see something different out there every day. This is a fantastic learning environment. The complex nature creates the opportunity. And that nature is then supported by the modern interpretation of the lithogeochemistry data with relation to the fertility, so the igneous fertility and the age data. The project has not received the modern exploration attention required. The recent exploration on 5% of the mineral system has delivered 493 at 1.17% copper equivalent, 282 at 1.28% copper equivalent. The remaining 95% of the project area has Tier 1 scale untested targets. The southern target as documented there, the eastern target as documented there. They're Tier 1 size and scale, they're untested, and importantly, they are byproduct commodity, which I've explained. Each work program we complete there has upgraded the opportunity. And we're hoping and we're really confident that future investment in drilling here will deliver success. Thank you very much. And no, that's just a schematic model on the side over here where these systems sit. So there's no more. Yeah, beers. Okay, thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
Let's see a couple there. I'll stop there and I'll come back.
Thanks, Pete. Cam, that was an absolutely beautiful presentation. The way you delivered that was like listening to a love ballad. Obviously, you have this beautiful passion for that. And I was on the edge of my seat, almost falling off with the passion of that delivery.
Thank you, Rob. I was worried about you previously. Now I'm really worried.
I was with Newcrest for a couple of holes there, and I was totally blown away by the milled breccias that you're talking about. The class were round, and there was sulfide infill there. My question is, did Newcrest drill the holes in the best bits? Because Newcrest walked away. Were we on the right bit or the wrong bit with those holes?
The information from the Newcrest work program was invaluable to pointing us in the right direction, Rob. Invaluable. Yep. No, but it tells a story like all the other bits of information. Newcrest was scattered all around the place and weren't focused on the size of the prize system. But it was great work, mate. You did great work.
It wasn't me, but I was impressed. I wasn't at all. Yeah, regarding the southern target, where you are proposing that it exists, at what depth do you expect that to be at this stage?
So, great question again. So if you think about the skarns, they're fine-grained in nature. We're just seeing weak evidence for A, B, and C veins up in there. That's predominantly pyritic. So you're still in the pyrite halo. So if you look at the zonation at Cadia East, Ridgeway, Parks, and all these sorts of systems, and other the Latin American things as well, you've got hundreds of meters, right? Let's be realistic. You might be 400 if you get lucky to the top, but it might be 600 plus meters for sure. But the prize, you're dealing with so who's got a calculator here? So whip a calculator out, just go 1,200 meters by 500 meters by an average skarn thickness of 40 to 60 meters, just go 40, at its SG of 2.9. Your surface footprint for that is really large. What do we get?
69,600,000.
70 million tonnes. Pretty impressive. That's the surface geochem footprint. If you took it all together, an average grade is probably 0.25, maybe 0.28, something like that. There's a lot of metal there. So that metal just didn't appear there. but that metal's in the upper part or the peripheral or the cooler part. You've got to chase the prize, which is down below, but the prize is down deep. And that's why we're doing all the detective work here as well. That's just the southern target. We've got the same on the eastern target.
So is that 1,200 metres you think it is at?
No. That's the surface footprint, right? I think it's probably 400, 500, maybe 600, something like that.
Not deep.
It's deep. It's going to be expensive, but you have to demonstrate the target and justify the holes. And that's why we're doing all this detailed work moving forward. But you can't walk away from it. You cannot walk away from it because of the size of the prize.
Yeah, when you look at the photography or the satellite imagery, get the distinct impression there are multiple caldera complexes. And having done the trenching out there on a lot of those ribs, all of those are wide breccias, 20, 30 metres. No one's drilled into those structures. A lot of the skarn work was vertical holes in the sediments. They never tested the structures. And that's down south. And onto Newcrest work, excellent drilling. A lot of their drill holes returned plus 5 grams of gold in zones, and they never followed them up. And that's even down in the Lifesaver and Monument areas. So there's a lot of value in those.
To the Newcrest question though, right? When they were drilling Cannindah, they happened to locate this thing called Cadia.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
so there's a rationale and a reason for why they went to Cadia at the end of the day. So and again, Jim, it's still great work for sure.
Yeah. What I would suggest to follow up on the caldera complexes and work out what's happened, I recommended flying LiDAR, and I still recommend you should fly some LiDAR and get some really detailed surface.
So what we've done with regard to that is we've detailed rock chip sampled with all the lithogeochem suite of elements. And so what we're looking for are evidence of the pencils, so the pencil porphyry spines. And if you have a look at the models that Scotty Halley and people who are really in the know and worked on all these systems throughout the world, above these pencils are tin, tungsten, tellurium. We have tellurium here at levels which are really exciting. And so we can identify these centres or these upflow or outflow zones above these pencils. We're in the process of getting access and working through that right now. So, but I understand your LiDAR optionality. Thank you.
The other thing about the Kalpower fault, and I had the same in my report, if it was pre or sin, then it's a major target. And your evidence shows that it was pre.
It's pre, sin and post.
Yes.
Because the Monument Intrusive Complex is displaced right laterally to the south. And the whole thing the whole system is zoned from the Kalpower fault.
Yeah. And
it's a beauty.
Because the breaks have been a hard rib or ridge. Yeah. And now it's a valley. It's just and filled in with all your sediment. The other thing there was when I was out there in 2022, they drilled a water bore out on near the Kalpower fault, and the hit chalcopyrite.
We know all about that one, Jim. It's a ripper. So for those people, the Kalpower fault is undercover, essentially. There is no outcrop there. But if you get out and you scrounge in the creeks and you get the geos to crawl through the Lantana, you find evidence for magnetite skarns. And the results they're just modest results, 0.1s, 0.2s and things like that. But Jim's referencing an old water bore on the Kalpower fault. And yes, there's very, very interesting copper and gold and moly grades in that old water bore.
That's sitting above your eye.
And there is a Newcrest hole there as well, RCC 012, which I think returned 70 metres at 0.3, 0.3. Interesting. And the holes are only 200 metres deep.
If there's copper there, it's massive.
Thanks for your support, Jim.
Got one question from home. In regard to the historic soil samples, what is the regolith?
So the regolith is quite easy. It's outcrop, subcrop. There's beautiful exposure there. There is probably a slight component of supergene enrichment, but things like the gold and the moly and the copper probably reflect what's underneath. So essentially not much regolith at all, just weak oxidation. The classic depth of oxidation is around about 2 to 3 metres.
Oh, shallow.
Yeah, really shallow. I mean, you see fresh sulfides on the surface everywhere.
Talk. Thank you. Also appreciated the sales part of the talk, even though you're probably in the wrong room for that. Given the prospectivity that you're really showing us, it's way, way, way bigger than what the resources of the company have. Ultimately, if you're a $17 million market cap
Today,
but I can see an exploration budget of 25 million plus in what you're talking about today per year potentially. So realistically, how is the company going to deal with it?
I don't see that as a problem, Mark. I mean, you know, the target sells itself, and once people understand the potential size and scale, the opportunities will come out. Obviously, Cannindah, if you look at Lassonde curves and things like that, Mark, you know, the early discovery phase is the optimal and greatest opportunity for everyone. But perhaps down the track, a big partner or something like that, look, time will tell. But that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to do the geology and all that, right? That's Mr. Tom Pickett. So that's great. But I take your point.
Do you see in the short term the opportunity for a joint venture with a major?
I'd like to do it on myself, but that's just me, Mark. I mean, we understand where the porphyry pencil intrusive centres are. Our plan is perhaps deep RC holes, 400 to 500 metres, really quick, really fast. A big company, a large company on that southern target, for example, would run 400 metre space grid drill lines to 800 metres to 1200 metres all the way across it. And determine now, I mean, we might end up doing that. It just depends. But if in the short term, we've got options on the Cannindah breccia. We've got the eastern target is undercover, so it's really the access is not too bad. The southern target has some interesting access conditions, which we will overcome for sure. But our aim is to clearly hit the highest growth phase of that Lassonde curve for sure.
Thanks, Glenn. Good talk. Couple of questions. First one, the MIC you were saying is not the source of the fluid. Have you seen any intrusives within the drilling that you've done or has been done in the past that might give you a hint as to what the source is?
No, we have, Simon. I showed you my favourite rock slide back there, if this will work. And in there we have a feldspar ferric dacitic porphyry as fragments in the Cannindah breccia. Now that's the material that was dated by the rather large company. So if I go back, there, so this beast here, so there's a feldspar ferric dacite porphyry, and it is really crowded in places, and it's a unique. Sometimes it's flow banded, for example, but that's the material they sample. That's the fertile stuff. That's the 235 MA material. Yeah, we do. We see these we see other intrusive phases outside the monument intrusive complex, and we see lots of aplite dikes with peripheral mineralisation. I also showed you this material at depth, so all the little aplites and things like that coming in. So we know we're at the apical or the upper edges of these pencils or these other intrusives on the margins. And where else, or where better for these things to come up around the edge of this pre-existing batholith with all the hornfells and all that sort of stuff. So what a great location.
My other one, Ken, was just about scale. I couldn't read the coordinates on the maps. In terms of 5% of the area is the Cannindah resource and the remaining is 95. What sort of area is that?
So the whole system size, Simon, is about 3.2 plus 3.2 kilometres in the long direction, in the north-northwest direction, and around about 2.5 kilometres in the northeast direction as well. So, but it's truncated. Come on. It's truncated, obviously, by the Kalpow Fault, but we know now that that mineralisation goes across the Kalpow Fault underneath the Muncon Volcanics, which we have done. No one's done any work. There's one project up here called Pages, which was drilled years and years ago, which came up with SCC pyrite alteration. Lots and lots of intense sericite chlorite, quartz carbonate, pyrite.
Thank you. Really boring question. But what metals are in your copper equivalent grade?
Gold and silver. Gold and silver, Doug. No. So there it is there, Doug. So no, I specifically referenced that prior, Doug, and I thought that you would grab that straight away. Yeah, for sure. Well, for the time being, let me tell you. I mean, this is an enormous moly-bearing system. This is the levels of moly anomalism have not been appreciated. And if you think that we chase through the Andes 5, 6, 7, and 8 ppm moly anomalies, and we've got huge 70 plus ppm moly anomalies, this is staggering.
Okay, so gold, silver.
Yep.
My second question, or maybe it's my third, refers to the mineralised class in those breccias. Where I'm working, we've had some recent discoveries. One of those discoveries has it's called Chandrian, and it's got it's got finger porphyries or pencil porphyries, but with that it also has a late breccia, and the late breccia has mineralised class in it. And there's enough mineralised clasts, they're little fragments of tonalite with cross-cutting veins. That's got enough metal in those clasts to carry it to be economic, but we can't classify that as indicated because it's not like a porphyry. It's a breccia. Actually, this question is more of a comment, and it's actually saying that if you've got mineralised clasts, they're coming from somewhere. So maybe the big kahuna is a little bit downstairs.
That's exactly right, but it's not coming from the monument intrusive complex. It's coming from the periphery. And like, I'll go back to my favourite rock. So that rock there, if you look in on that thing, the vein density of that stockwork, of that material there is incredible. That's nearly total replacement by vein. Here again, the albite, you see all the other fragments, but there's another breccia event sitting in here as well. So again, it's system diversity, but it's just early stage, Rob. We have so much work to do there, but our work now starts with drilling the appropriate holes on the appropriate targets.
One last from Doug. I think Michael and I getting on a bit.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. You mentioned there was some high bismuth values in the breccia, the Cannindah breccia. What's the level of bismuth in the southern skarn areas? It's
quite low, Doug, but up to 30 to 50 ppm is the number as well. So tin values, so I'll go through it. So the multi-element geochemistry is tin gets up to 600 ppm, 700 ppm in select places. Moly is anywhere from 100 to 300 in places. Tellurium is 800 to 1,000 ppm in places. Again, so you go back to that fertility, the vanadium, scandium, that fractionation trend, and you should be seeing tellurium. So we have tellurium. So we knew we had something different as soon as we started getting tellurium numbers. And the bismuth numbers are 50, 70, 80, things like that. But I mean, I can take you through that stuff. It's published in an ASX announcement a few months ago.
The numbers in the breccia. Bismuth. numbers?
Okay, so the breccia's a little bit different, but where we see the bismuth numbers, they come around the edges of the breccia, so in these sorts of zones, and they're again 70s, 150s, 200 and thing like that. There is no real bismuth in the breccia, but I mean the A veins have 16 ppm bismuth. So just the early stage hot veins has 16 ppm bismuth, really fertile fluid.
Fantastic. Well, I think we'll call it a night there. Thank you, Cam. It's great to see an exciting Queensland project presented. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.